All right, how are we doing on this fine, cold Wednesday morning? It's Wednesday. Come on, Josh, wake up. So, right off the bat, I just want to show you guys something, and then we'll look at it again towards the end of the stream because I know there's not a ton of people in here. So let's just say hello first, and then I'll show you something I was thinking about. Mythical, how you doing? You can see why people were hyping up the Popeyes chicken sandwich. It's really good. Hey, Jake, as long as it takes, I guess that's an answer to how long is it still early. I got exactly what I want to show you has to do with that. And I don't even know the information I will present without judgment. I don't even know exactly how I feel about it yet. I see it both ways. Steven says, holy crap, what a waste of missing sleep. Yeah, Jacob Truba, right? Hey, James. So I'm going to share the screen here. And we'll look at this again towards the end of the stream. But the page I'm going to show you. Here we go. These are the NHL standings on this day in 2022, in the 22-23 season. Obviously, that is the first run to the Cup where we ended up being, 8, 10 points out of the playoff spot at some point, busting our tail, coming back, and we know the rest of the story. So some interesting parallels. Some things are the same, some things are different. So at this point, we had 13 points. We were 6-5-1. And we are now 6-6-1 with 13 points. So we had now played one more game than we had that year. Our goal differential was -7. We had 34 goals for, 41 goals against, and not all that different. The goal differential is not as bad, but last night obviously added to that. We were -1. We had 38 goals and 39 goals against. Now, obviously, right now we're in last place with 13 points. At this point in this season, we were in sixth with Montreal and Ottawa underneath us. Now, when you start talking about how close were we to the playoffs at this point, we were one game out of second place and 1 point out of third place. Where we are now is 2.5 games out of second place and 3 points or a game and a half out of third place with the Bruins. Now, in similar fashion, I don't really know that we expect the Bruins, who are in third place at this point, to finish in third place. Just like you can look back and say, here's Buffalo in third place at this point in 22. And I don't think anybody figured that Buffalo would be finishing in third place. So what has happened so far is not so much of what matters. What happens from here on out in the next 6 weeks, however, is because where we ended up being for the Panthers after this start, where, okay, you can say it's early. We're only 2 points out of second place. We're fine. We just got to keep pace. That's what we were saying then, but we did not. And we ended up being like 10 points out of the playoffs when Maurice had his meltdown against Toronto and Tkachuk called the team soft, Tkachuk's dad. So while we can look at our start right now and say, hey, it's still early, we've started slow before, I can totally roll with that. The difference being obviously now is no Barkov, no Tkachuk, no Nosek, no Kulikov. And we see their absence on the ice every night. And so we have to start making sure that we're at least playing a game or two here or there. Every 10 games, we should at least be 6-4-1, like a little bit over 500. I know 6-4-1 is 500, but a little bit more than a point per game pace. We don't want to fall too far behind because, number one, we're only getting Tkachuk back anytime soon. And number two, these teams that are ahead of us, Canadians aren't going anywhere. The Wings could be real, maybe not second place real, but they're probably going to be in the discussion. The Bruins are probably the team that is most likely to falter. They've won 4 in a row, so they're on a good little roll. The Leafs should be right there. The Lightning should be right there. The Senators were a playoff team last year. So the number of teams that we can end up chasing is the problem. It's one thing if you can say, well, we're only 6 points behind and we can make a comeback. The problem comes if you're 6 points behind 5 other teams. That's where things could get a little bit dicey. So we'll discuss that. But I wanted to show you guys that because I understand that there's the idea that it's still a little bit early, while at the same point, what happens really in the next month is really what's important. Craig says, what did Pomo do? They're playing like they want him fired, right? Hey, Colby. The players got the bag. I don't know. We'll see. Jake says, I actually got triggered at idiots at our hockey arguing that Rodriguez flopped. Jeez. Oh, man. Well, I'm just glad he came back. I'm just glad he came back. You know, I was kind of surprised that they upheld the 5-minute major. I kind of thought maybe it wasn't completely on purpose, but I guess the rule is it doesn't matter if it's on purpose or not. If you make head contact and they catch it, I guess that's where that comes from. Colby, you think the Panthers won't get better when Tkachuk comes back? Well, we'll have to disagree there. Jake says, yes, it's early with injuries to some of our best players. And that right. And that's where we don't really know. We don't really know. Right? We don't know how much of this is it's early, it's a Stanley Cup hangover and all of that versus, you know, what exactly is this team without Barkov and Tkachuk? We've had some good nights and we've had some good periods. I mean, last night, the first half of the second period looked fantastic. And then from the second half of the second period was awful. And then the first half of the third period was all special teams. And we had the 5-minute major. And then we took a penalty. And then they took a penalty. It was just a disaster. There's still 11 and a half minutes left. And it's 4-3. And you're like, just get a point out of this, guys. Steven says, I would argue that it's not as much the losses as who we're losing to. I don't know that who we're losing to is the same anymore, though. I think we've grown accustomed to, like I said last night, we've grown accustomed to, oh, the Ducks suck, and the Sharks suck, and the Sabres suck, and the Flyers suck. And up until a little bit a while ago, the Senators were always an easy win for us. I think the majority of those teams now, there's no 2 points that you look at on this. Nobody on the schedule, maybe the Flames, that you look at on the schedule and say, all right, that should be a win. That should be a win. These teams have all gotten better. Hey, Dark Fear. Yeah, the Ducks are playing well. And look, Quenneville has proven with the Panthers that his system can produce some offense. That's for sure. Jake, 500 hockey right now. If we can manage that. Now, what I'm curious to see over here, I wonder if I'm going to go a little bit further into, let's look at where we were on Christmas. So I'm going to move this to where we were on Christmas after that start that I just showed us. So let's see. What? They didn't even count Christmas because it was a Christmas break. So we'll count. Let's see. I haven't even looked at it yet. So let's see where we were at Christmas and how we ended up so far behind. So we were still 500-ish, right? 15, 6, and 4. So if you count overtime losses, it's 5 games below 500. We've got to do better than that. So we were sitting at 34 points at this point. And the playoff spot, yeah, the Rangers had that second wild card at 43 points. And so that's how quickly it can turn around. Now, had we kept this record real 500, had we been like maybe 17, 15, and 2, we would have had 4 more points and only would have been 5 points behind. So that's what I'm talking about in some senses of like getting that extra point. So you've seen in the 6 weeks from that slow start that we had to where we were at Christmas, you've seen that we went from 2 points out of second place to 9 points out of a playoff spot. That's how fast it happened. In those 6 weeks, we went from 2 points out of second place to 9 points out of a playoff spot. And so that's why I'm saying these next 6 weeks, this is where it's going to be, because I don't think Tkachuk coming back, we're not going to catch up if we're 9 points out. This team is just not going to have that gas. I can't imagine that, Real says a third of the team is hurt. Not sure what people expected. I think how can I put this? I think we can do better. I'm scrolling to the bottom because I know I missed some. Hey, Russell, how you doing, David? Undead, how's everybody doing? Yeah, Steven, Marchand looked great in his goal, but really rough the rest of the game. He doesn't look like he's shot out of a cannon right now. Greg says all these bad teams have been getting good talent, so eventually they'll all get good, right? Okay, I want to see what Jake was saying here. He says, and Colin Campbell's the only reason a major was handed out. So even if we get blown out, Colin still screws over the Ducks for the Panthers. Yeah, he picked up the phone, right, Jake? He picked up the phone in the middle of the game. Oh. Yeah. I get what you're saying. Hey, Metal, what the duck is going around here, right? Mike says we had 1 minute power play time on the 5-minute major. Yeah, it was a wild night, man. Kate says there's absolutely no excuse for what happened last night. Don't even get me started on the officiating. There were some calls earlier in the game that I think could have gone differently, but we did end up with like 5 power plays. I don't think we were winning that game. We just didn't look. We looked very out of sync and discombobulated. KRG says just got to win 2 or 3 on the road for it to be a big success. Survive at or above 500 with Tkachuk returns and the pieces fall into place. There's parity to the NHL now, so no win is going to be easy. Yeah, 500. Right now, if you want to count the overtime loss, we're 1 game below 500. We got to stay. And what I showed you with those other standings, by that time, we were 4 games under 500 if you count the overtime losses, and we were 9 points out of a spot. So making sure that we at least stay 500 when you count the overtime losses that's where we need to focus. So, but it's dicey. It's dicey. We can't do what we did in the last road trip. We'll just lose 4 games. You know what I mean? Because that was a 5-game trip, right? And then we just beat Boston at the end. Correct me if I'm wrong there. We can't do that here. We gotta get points in these games, and this is the second time in a row now. The first game of the road trip was bad. David says, seems to me like we gave in after the missed call on the elbow. Also very disheartening to see us not put one of their guys in concussion protocol after the cheap shot on Erod. We can be injured and we can have new guys, but we cannot be soft. Yeah, I mean, there's just only so many guys you can lose, and I agree with what you're saying, but we already got, I wouldn't be surprised to see Cunnin come back in. He's not hurt, right? Or did he get hurt? And I know Gadjevich is out. It's just only so many guys. At one point on the ice last night, you had Schwint and Sabrango at the same time, and it's like, you got 5 guys on the ice, and 2 of them are guys you just picked up off the waiver wire. You know what I mean? Like, this is just not our team right now. We have to find a way to survive until, and then cross our fingers that Barkov can come back. Undead, yeah. Appreciate you guys beating the Lightning there. Appreciate that. Craig says, Chucky on one leg, playoff games, so him coming back healthy and charged up will be on a mission. Yeah, Chucky's going to help. IDK says, this team ain't making the playoffs, huh? Well, this team, no. I mean, and what I mean by that is that we're not making the playoffs without Barkov and Tkachuk. It's this. I don't think so. That's too much. And we're certainly not making the playoffs without Barkov, Tkachuk, Nosek, Kulikov. Like, we're still struggling to find how to work. I mean, Marchand, Lundell, Luosterainen, beautiful, right? And Rodriguez is doing really a better job than anybody else was doing in terms of filling in for Barkov and driving some play. But when you get Bennett on your third line, Samoskevich is still a rookie, not a rookie, but a young player. He's still working on his game against the boards, and you got Boquist on the other side. There's just no configuration that we're going to achieve with the guys that we have healthy right now that is going to give us the advantages we always had, which is the best two-way center on top and a third line that really could easily be at least the second line on every other team. So we're just having to make up for so many different things. And my concern is they can't let it slip. Like, we can't afford like another 4 or 5 game losing streak. I just don't think we can, because all of the other teams are playing at 500 or better. I mean, for crying out loud, Boston is 8-7. They're 8-7 with a -2 goal differential, but they're alone in third place. So the parity is just absurd. Thomas, yeah, the Oilers are off to a slow start too. Russell says if we lose Capitals and Sabres, it's over for the Blues. Yeah, you got to start winning some games for sure. Steven, yeah, it's a shame how that went down with Lundell. IDK, yeah, we did kind of barely beat Boston. That's true. No, Tkachuk will change a lot. Tkachuk will give us another Marchand. David says, injuries really hurting to be sure. Obviously not the same team. I think Sasha's gone until next year. Let him heal. Chucky are fire and will help. But 3 of my favorite are MIA. Yeah, Bennett. Yeah, it's rough. Are we going to be known as the Florida Barkovs like Chicago with Bedard? Let me see something here. Jay says Barkov isn't the player injured, though. The only player. Right. Yeah, no, and that's the thing. It's just too much in too many spots. And on one hand, you could look at the roster and say, well, what do you think was going to happen? And that really wouldn't be inaccurate. But my concern with that is that, we may just be doing the best we can to hang on to just barely 500. And it's just lousy luck that all these other teams are playing well now. Yeah, we've lost 4 key players that even you don't consider like Kulikov a superstar, but what he does for our bottom pair, what Kulikov does for the bottom pair is very much like what Lundell does in being able to fill in for Barkov and have that advantage on the third line. Like having Kulikov on the bottom pair, and he's just so damn solid and consistent. That gives you advantages. So, you know what I mean? There's little advantages that we get on a nightly basis. And they're just, where's our advantage right now? We're on this roster viewpoint, the way that the lines are, divided up, where you say that should definitely give us an advantage. Like Lundell is a good 2C, but he's not going to give you a massive advantage over anybody else. Theoretically, Bennett at 3C should give you some kind of advantage, but that ain't happening. He's just struggling and struggling and struggling. He looks very unconfident. Is that the word I'm looking for? He looks like he's questioning his game. Like last night, he did the thing. He did the thing where he was trying to split the defense, and he actually did. He actually was just getting past the 2 defenders, and he had actually done it, but then he dumped the puck behind the net instead of finishing the play. Like you can see him, like you can see the wheels turning, that he's just lost his confidence right now. Scientist says Kulikov could be a 2D on any other team. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when we're healthy, we've just got advantages all over the place. And they just, right now, I mean, I guess you could say our top 4 on D is still a good advantage. But Ekblad and Forsling were on the ice for how many goals last night? Not that it was their fault, but it's going to be a long year. Even if we make the playoffs, like it's a long year because there's just no nights where we're just sitting back and be like, hey, 1 cup, 2 cup is good. We got a 4-0 lead. Everything is like, there's no nights coming like that. You know what I mean? Very rare this year. Are we going to be relaxed watching any of the games? Colin says, I think things will average out in the East. Some teams can't stay hot forever. Sure. Like I don't expect Boston to finish in 3rd, right? Greg says, Cats right now have 0 advantage over any team in the league. Joseph says, Bennett is forcing it a bit. Yeah, that's the word. That's the word I'm looking for. Real says, do I think all the people complaining about Bennett being dirty got to him? No. What I think happens to Bennett, my uneducated guess, he's a playoff performer, right? So my theory about Bennett is that when he really expends his energy and abuses his body and just guts and plays through things are those 2 months of the playoffs, 2.5 months sometimes of the playoffs, whatever it is. And so I kind of feel like he comes into the season and he's just really not as healed up and rested and ready to go. And the version of Bennett that we're comparing him to is the one we just saw in the playoffs where he was tearing it up and playing with reckless abandon. So that would be my guess, because his game is creating out of physicality and tenacity. And so when that is lacking for him, it's just not going to be the same. And Verhaeghe kind of, his shot percentage being MIA now for a 2nd straight year, that's another issue. And you combine that with the injuries, and you look at the roster, and I mean, if we didn't have Brad Marchand, we'd be out of a playoff spot, right? I mean, we're not in a playoff spot, but I mean, what are we? We're 6-1 with 13 points. Now we're already in last place in the conference. Without Marchand, 10 points. I mean, Marchand has at least been worth a game and a half so far this year. And I mean, look, how many times has he been the first goal to get us going? You know what I mean? So there's the side to say, well, it's still early and all of that. But I am actually starting to get a little bit more concerned that we're just hanging on for dear life. And this is about as good as it's going to get before Tkachuk comes back. And that one more injury or one more slump, and we could find ourselves just too far out. So I was saying it the whole road trip. I said it last night when it was 4-3. Finding ways on nights where you don't have your best stuff to get a point could easily be the difference at the end of this year. David says, Swaggy can't find the net and looks slower somehow. I know he's a playoff guy, but come on. It's not the A game. At least give us A effort. He doesn't look good. Well, what I'll say is that everybody's used to what they're used to. You know what I mean? These guys all signed for a reason. Everybody's used to what they're used to. And so when you're playing with Barkov, you've got a massive advantage. How hard does Verhaeghe have to work defensively if he's on the top line with Barkov? You know, so you get accustomed to kind of feeding off of that. Same thing with Lundell, Lucharan, and Marchand is on the third line. You know what I mean? And Bennett without Tkachuk, it's not the same. Much in the same way that Huberdeau was struggling, and then we got Bennett, and all of a sudden Huberdeau looked fantastic. That's going to be another part of why Tkachuk or why Bennett's struggling, is because he's having to he's playing with Samoskevich and Boquist. Bennett is responsible for any physicality that's going to happen on that line, basically, is Bennett's job now, because Mackey's not really that great along the boards. And that's really not Boquist's game either. But there's nothing for it. There's nothing, you know what I mean? Like, unless you're going to, you know, would Studnicka make a difference? Like, if we plugged Studnicka next to Bennett and gave Boquist, who you guys know I love, would Studnicka, would he help in replacement of Boquist? Would that give Bennett a little bit something else? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but I could be wrong. But I kind of feel like he's got some size. 6'1", $187. So he's not a monster by any stretch of the imagination. So I think he's probably not that 6'1", 187 is probably not even that much bigger than Boquist. Boquist is 6'1", 191. So no, that ain't the answer. That's not the answer. I don't think so anyway. John says, is one big player injury away from being completely out. I think we still need help. It would depend on who the injury is. Craig says, Ekblad went to Ekblad, too much praise. I mean, the puck was just finding its way in the net last night, you know. Joseph says, I was there last night, and you can tell he was trying to will his way out of the slump, but it was throwing off his pace, talking about Bennett. Yeah. I think somebody had said something about, hold on a second. Hold on a second. That's not what I wanted. Just didn't mean to do that. So, okay. Dark Fear says, it sucks what happened last night, but I refuse to call Leo Carlson dirty player. As a Ducks fans, that's how I feel about it. I'll be honest. as a homer, obviously, even as a Panther fan, when I watched the replay, I don't know. I understand that some people might feel it's a little bit naive to say that I didn't think I know some people might feel like it's a little bit naive to say that he didn't do it on purpose, but I kind of felt like it was more just of a random collision than purposeful. You know what I mean? Like I didn't feel like it was going to be overly like it was overly on purpose. It was the way the rule is, I guess if you hit the guy in the head, it's going to be 5 minutes. Honestly, I thought the elbow to Lundell was more purposeful what he did to Erod, but if somebody feels like it was on purpose, like I don't have a great argument against that either. I'm just going by how I felt about it when I watched it. Miss Kraft says, I've seen my team win the cup back to back. If they miss the playoffs, it's fine for now. Let the players have a long off season for once. Yeah, we won't. We're not going to cry. We'll be disappointed, you know. Capitals Ovi's fan, Ovi fan says, hopefully Ovi can get to 900 goals tonight. Are we there? Very cool. David says, I don't know the guy. His Ducks are irrelevant to me. They usually play late, so I'm usually in bed. But that was, at best, a poor decision. Scientist says, I feel bad for Benny's buddies. Not many adoptions this season, it seems. Real says, don't count on Tkachuk coming back and everything being fine. He'll need a few weeks minimum. Oh, sure. Lack says, the problem with Bennett is on a line with Boquist, who's just awful, and Mackey, hard for him to get going. I mean, he's responsible for everything that happens on that line, basically. Hey, Ruthless Sharky. Mr. Krabs, yeah, I agree with you there. That was kind of a bummer. Hey, Bill, how you doing, buddy? Craig says, Mackey, Bennett, and Studnicka would be a good line. I mean, Studnicka's career, I mean, he's no different than Boquist instead of putting the puck in the back of the net. But maybe a change of, you never know. You know what I mean? I mean, it's not like Boquist has been lighting anything up. I wouldn't be against giving the kid a shot, but I don't know that that's some panacea to fix what ails us. David says, I get there's going to be a drop off. It just seems excessive to me. But regardless of the stream title, it is early, but this team needs something like their own melancholy to hit a rat, something to give them an identity. Yeah. Bill, yeah, last place. I know, man. Now there's an idea. Colin says, why not put Greer on the third line and J-Bo on the fourth line? I wouldn't be against that. Greer to me shows up a little bit more offensively than Boquist does sometimes. Yeah, it's good enough, Joyful. You guys are doing okay. You're not in last place, Sabres. Silva says, so if you look at the positives, Marchand is the best Panther. Mouthwash is officially broken out. Sabrango, Petrie looked as good as you can in a 7-goal loss, and Samoskevich is on a 3-game point streak. Samoskevich is really getting good at dishing out those assists. That's for sure. Hey, Proagan. Yeah, you did the right thing going to bed. So what do I think about Sabrango? I liked his game. I really kind of feel like he looks a little bit like Brandon Montour. He had a pretty bad kind of a giveaway, bad pass, clearing, trying to get it to Verhaeghe, I believe, or maybe it was Lundell that gave up the 7th goal. It was kind of a tough spot he was in. I hope that one thing doesn't take Maurice to, get Maurice to take him out of the lineup. I would kind of hope that doesn't happen. Just excuse me a second. I have to take care of something here in terms of the eBay codes that Kyle has to have sent to him because his computer won't stay logged in. Okay. All right, my apologies. But I like Sabrango's game. I think with development, if he's allowed to just play and develop, young defenseman, he's going to make mistakes. That's how the game works. But I don't see any reason to not let him play right now and let's see how he can develop. I don't see any reason to rush Balinskis back on the ice. We know what Balinskis is. And Sabrango's young. I believe 23. He's 23. And so, 6'2", 223. He's only got last night was his 6th career game. Like, let him play. Let him play. As long as he's not costing us, he looks like he could have some offensive upside. He's a good skater. He looks like he knows when to activate and everything like that. I see no reason to rush Balinskis back on the ice. Sabrango certainly looks better than Bornfoot did. Krabs says call up Bornfoot and see what he can do. I don't think that the team is all that thrilled about Bornfoot's game. He's still developing as well, but I think what they think about Bornfoot, I think they told us what to think about Bornfoot when they picked up Sabrango. Yeah, what are the face-off percentages? Good question. It's been getting a little bit better. The one I want to see is Rodriguez because obviously he's on top. Rodriguez is at 45.1. He's at 45%. It's not fantastic. But considering everything else he brings to the ice, the energy that he's providing in Barkov's absence, I'll take that. Where's Lundell? Lundell's probably at about 55. Lundell is at 53.2. That's gone down a little bit from where it was, but that's his normal number the last few years, 54.9, 53. So he's pretty much his normal self there. Bennett is the one. And I've also seen Verhaeghe taking some draws. Bennett is at 48.3%. Now that number's gone up, so he must be winning draws. And, down there on the third line. So that's actually an improvement there. Interesting. And now I noticed a couple of times when Rodriguez, Verhaeghe, and Reinhart were on the ice, I noticed Verhaeghe was taking a couple of draws, not last night, but the previous game. Now, technically, he's a center, but he hasn't played center in forever. Yeah, 40%. So I don't know what that was about, but I noticed it more than once the other game. So I don't know if it was a righty-lefty thing or what that was about, but you had Reinhart and Rodriguez on the ice, and Verhaeghe was taking the draw. I'm scrolling back down to the bottom of the comments. Schwint was 54. 50, all right, that's good, scientist. Thank you for that one. I forgot him. I forgot about Schwint. All right, well, that's good news because we need that. Krabs says, thank goodness we didn't trade Rodriguez in the offseason. We didn't realize there was going to be a cap problem. So, we didn't, we thought, we were going to be able to just kind of mosey on through the year and then, have everybody there for the playoffs. But yeah, good thing we didn't. My gut feeling, again, completely made up in my head, is that the team went to Rodriguez and said, we could trade you now, or you could take the chance that we won't have to trade you, but we might have to trade you. And Rodriguez chose to stay. In my imaginary world, that's how it went down, but it kind of makes some logical sense. Hey, Kenneth says the Panthers are in a better mental place than last year's Rangers, but still going to be tough. Silva says, imagine how screwed this team would be if we traded E-Rob before the... Yeah. Crab says, this is a good season to call up some Checkers players. I don't really know what... I mean, defensively, I like what we're working with right now. I'm happy given Sabrango the extra time. In terms of calling anybody up right now, that's on the forward, the forward side of things. Let me see if I can look at this and even, because I understand what you're saying. Where the hell is the team? Here we go. So Wilmer Skog, he's got 3 goals. Devine has got 3 goals. Vilmanis has got a couple. Sachin has got a couple. Or 1. Studnika's got 1. Leia's out there barking. She's heavy duty barking. So when I look at, Bournefoot has only even played 4 games at Columbus. So either he's hurt or he's not even getting games. He's not even getting ice time every night, as far as I can see. Hunter St. Martin's only played 3 games. He doesn't have any points. Entwistle's got nothing going on. Like, trying to think about this, what we need, and if there's anybody that could even give us a little bit of juice that way. I mean, we've got so many holes. Could you bring up a Devine or a Vilmanis or a Sachin, Studnicka, and get them with Bennett on that third line and see if it made any difference? I mean, I don't really think any of these guys are going to be. I just don't know that any of them are really ready for that. I'd like to say Devine, but during the preseason, he was really getting knocked off the puck pretty easy. And what we need on the third, I'm disappointed. I guess he went elsewhere. Puljujarvi. I wouldn't have minded being able to put Puljujarvi with Bennett and Mackey right now. Right? What we need on that line is some size and physicality or something. But, we can't go making trades right now because, we don't know if Barkov's coming back or not. Bill says, Bennett, Boqvist, and Verhaeghe have been disappointing. I mean, you guys know how I feel about Boqvist. He had 12 quick goals last year. Zito gave him $1.5 million, and he just dropped off the face of the earth offensively after that. I still to this day do not understand when everybody else is taking $1 million and Samoskevich is taking a pay cut. Samoskevich took a pay cut from what he was making last year. And here's Jesper Boqvist getting $1.5 million. It is so that contract was so out of place with the cap structure of everybody else's contracts. I never understood that move. And it's not, if Boqvist was making minimum wage, you'd be like, that's a good depth player and all of that. So, and then Bennett and Verhaeghe, yeah. The problem, we talked about this yesterday with Verhaeghe, is the shot percentage. And this is my concern with Verhaeghe. Now, his shot percentage, starting in Tampa with 15.8, 16.8, 14.4, 15.3, 13.8. Last year was 8.3, and you think, oh, he's at an off year. He's barely ever finished below 14%. He'll be fine, right? Well, he's at 6.1% right now, which is worse than he was at last year. I'm not blaming his wife. I'm not saying it's because he got married. I'm just saying that his career was plus 24, plus 24, plus 10, plus 17. Then he got married, and then he was a negative 14 last year and is a minus 4 this year. I'm not blaming his wife. Something changed. Something changed. You know what I mean? Is what it is. Scientist says when Chucky comes back, I think Bennett will be promoted to 2C. The way I think they're doing it right now, honestly, is I think it doesn't really matter. Let me look at the time on ice. I believe if I'm going to look at the game logs, I believe he's already got the time on ice evened out. So yesterday, Verhaeghe was at 17:58. Bennett, time on ice yesterday was, let's see here. His time on ice yesterday was 16:32. So that's basically a minute difference. And so my point there is that I think Maurice is just giving all those lines basically even time. So I don't think 1 through 3 really matters, because I think when Tkachuk comes back, it'll be Bennett with Tkachuk and Samoskevich, and 1, 2, 3. It doesn't really matter right now, because without Barkov, we do not have a number one center. We've got Lundell, who is an excellent 2C, who could function at 1C. You've got Bennett, who's an excellent 2, 3C, depending on the time of the year. And then you got Rodriguez, who nobody understands why he's so good. And I mean that as a compliment. You know what I mean? Evan Rodriguez, you put him at 1C, you put him at 4C. I'm convinced the guy could play defense, and he'd be just fine. Loj says, missed the game, but our bottom pair isn't viable. Petrie, Sabrango, and Belinskas are a joke of a bottom pair, and Forsling Ekblad look gas. Yeah, we're going to have to disagree, Lil J. 4 of the first 5 goals, Forsling and or Ekblad were on the ice. Petrie and Sabrango looked good last night. It had nothing to do with that. There and Ekblad's, I mean, if you go to time on ice, since we're talking about time on, and you know I'm not the one that's going to stick up for Aaron Ekblad. He's 20 minutes a night. He played 20 minutes the year of the game before, 21. He's playing about his normal amount of time. And if I go back to last year and look at his game logs, pretty much the same thing. Like his time on ice is pretty well consistent. I guess what's that, an average of about 22 minutes a night, I would suspect, just guessing by looking at it. Sabrango had a giveaway on the 7th goal, but the first goal was a breakaway where the guy got behind Forsling and Mikkola. And 2 of the goals were with Ekblad in front battling with another player, and not even his fault. So I wish it was that easy. In fact, that's what I said last night in the recap a couple of times, Lil J, was that I wish you could just point to the bottom pair and be like, that's the problem. But it's just not. They actually were pretty solid last night. Communist says it's a butterfly effect. Maybe trading Erod makes it so that Barkov is healthy because the training session is different with different players. I see what you're saying. Yeah. So if we trade Erod, Barkov would have been doing something else that moment on the ice and not got hurt. I get what you're saying. Hey, Mr. Vids. Yeah, you went to bed. We were up 3-2 and woke up this morning, right? And that's it. Kenneth says, bad luck has just hit the Panthers. I don't think there's a good answer. It's not. You know what I mean? I mean, we look at, I said this a while ago, not here today, but you look at the last two playoff runs, the two cup runs. Like last year, I don't think any of our top six on the defense even missed a game in the playoffs. Like our health in the playoffs, especially the 2 years that we won, it's just been, I mean, we weren't like Edmonton lost, right? Edmonton lost. People forget Hyman was out. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying they win with him, but like that's at least us being like Verhaeghe would have been out or Rodriguez was out. I mean, we had our guys healthy just the whole time. I mean, I think Bennett might have missed a couple of games. Reinhart might have missed a couple of games. I don't think anybody on defense missed a game at all the whole playoffs. So what Kenneth is saying about the bad luck is like we really, really, really had some exceptional health these last 2 years in the playoffs. Tara says, sell the team. I can't handle this much losing. Yeah, what? Yeah, Megna. Well, where's Horvolka? Now, I wouldn't mind bringing him up. Polviari is playing overseas right now. Silver, what we need on that line is Justin Sordiff. How's he doing, by the way? I mean, you know, the Capitals are in last place, too. How is Sordiff doing? 1 goal in 12 games. He's got 1 goal. He doesn't have a bad plus minus. 46% in the face-off circle, 9.1 shot percentage. He's got a goal. He's getting basically 12 minutes a night, so he's playing. He's playing, right? So that's something. OJ says we might have to risk making a trade because I don't think this team is making the playoffs right now. That'll happen after Chuck comes back. We can't do anything right now. There's nothing we can do unless we send salary back the other way. Because if Barkov comes back, anybody we trade for won't be able to play. We don't have the cap space for the team we have if Barkov is healthy and everybody's healthy to ice them in the playoffs. You know what I mean? We've talked about it. If Barkov is healthy, if all of our big guys are healthy, we don't have cap space to put Rodriguez on the ice in the playoffs. So anybody that we trade for most likely is going to include players going back the other way. And like we talked about above, you can't trade Rodriguez. He's basically the second best player on the team right now outside of Marchand. You can't trade Erod. I don't know what the hell we're going to do when Barkov comes back because I don't see how we don't have. I don't even know if we could make a team where Rodriguez could play if we if we played a man down. Like I don't know if we could go like 11-6, like play a man down and still fit Rodriguez on the ice the way that the cap is. It's a hell of a. If you wrote a book, if you went to AI before the season, a month before the season started, and you went to ChatGPT and you said, create me a scenario where the Panthers are just have every possible bad thing that could happen to them, but still have a viable team. I mean, the amount of things that have happened that like David just said, or like Kenneth said up above, it's just like some of this stuff there's no answer for. You know what I mean? There's no answer for who's going to replace Barkov. There is none. It's just a completely different team. Real says Zito needs to learn from a good GM like Chris Greer. Lil J says Jesper was good in the playoffs, but maybe he should be making half. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even have minded 900,000. I just never understood why he got the 1.5 when you think about what everybody. I mean, he's making more than Kulikov. You know what I mean? I never understood that. Sharks, hopefully Sharks can win against the Kraken. Celebrini is finding his game. Yeah. Yeah, Sharks can score. So Colin says maybe Bokus will be the one traded and whoever else makes his amount of money. Well, Boquist is, I don't want to say it's a non-factor, but when Barkov comes back, we're 4.5 over. So even if you forget Boquist because he wouldn't be on the ice anyway. So now you're 3 over, right? So obviously the idea is, well, then Rodriguez can't play. He can be on the roster, but in the way that it works now is that your roster can be over the cap in the playoffs, but your game day lineup can't. So with everybody healthy, we're 4.5 over. So Boquist off the ice, now we're 3 over. So it's got to be Rodriguez unless you're going to sit Luosterainen. Don't shoot the messenger there. But some combination of players making $3 million if Barkov comes back and everybody's healthy has to sit. So we could go trade for Sidney Crosby right now, but if Barkov comes back, you know what I mean? Like, it is such a unique situation because it's the first year that the new cap rules are in place. And I don't think I've ever in any sport, what was it, 2 weeks before the season started, 3 weeks? They're like, hey, by the way, we voted for the new rules to start next year. We're going to go ahead and start them now. I never heard of such a thing. Now, what would we have done differently had we have known? I mean, maybe in the offseason we would have moved Boquist, maybe. But it turned out to be the right move to not done anything because with the Barkov injury. So, because there was a couple people on the recap that said maybe we should make some trades. It's like, well, it's so complicated right now, and I don't know that there's a player out there that really is the answer to that anyway. Silva says, I'm sad we're never going to be able to see Balinska's born foot again. It was always a venture with the two of them on the ice. Yeah. Yeah, Flames, man. You guys are flaming out quickly, right? Jake says, yeah, they look good because they're not facing the top players most of the time. Oh, yeah. I mean, no doubt, Jake. No disagreement there. I'm just saying for purposes of what happened last night, Petrie and Sabrango was not anything having to do with why last night went well. You know what I mean? Like, I'd rather see Sabrango than Bornfoot. We'll start there. And then does Balinskis have a little bit more experience? Yeah. But I think Sabrango's got upside. That's just my opinion. Yeah, Petrie and Sabrango aren't Kulikov and Schmidt. Yeah. Lil J, that is 100% ding, ding, ding. That is the exactly. They are not Kulikov and Schmidt. 1,000,000%. 1,000,000%. Boy, I wish we had Nate Schmidt right now. All right, boy, I'm scrolling down to the bottom here. I got to get ready to go. Real says, just accept that we aren't repeating this year. Let everyone coast the season and refresh for next year. That's where you're at. And maybe they'll surprise and win again. I mean, I haven't quit. But reality is, hey, Vincent says, all right, I'm late here. If by the end of December Verhaeghe is not traded, I don't know what we're even doing here. And Rodriguez will be gone before the deadline because we need Barkov back for the push. Wow. Can I have some of what you're smoking, Vincent? Barkov ain't coming back for the regular season. No way. No. I don't know how we're going to trade Verhaeghe, though. With the no move clause. I hear what you're saying, though. So you think Barkov will be back during the regular season? Sounds to me like Rodriguez got hurt. This team sounds, if Barkov, I would almost guarantee that about 2 weeks before Barkov would mysteriously and miraculously come back during the regular season, that Rodriguez would strain an oblique and need to be out for the rest of the season. But he'd be fine if we need him for the playoffs. That would be my guess. That would be my guess. Dark Charge said, hey, Jaws, Jari is out for 3 weeks? Damn, and he was doing so well. He was doing so well. That's going to put a ding because Pittsburgh's second place, right? That's going to put a ding. They're going to have to gut it. I mean, they got to be thinking realistic playoff hopes right now. Now, that's an opportunity for a couple teams there if they can get on a heater to maybe take that spot. Looking at you, Rangers, there's your opportunity right there. Jake says, if Barkov comes back early because he was pressured or just decided to, I would not be surprised if he screws up his knee again even more. Kind of like Dante Culpepper. Or we've seen guys come back in other sports when they weren't ready. Remember when Marino came back from his Achilles? He was limping bad, man. He could play and he could throw a football, but he could barely walk. So, all right, everybody, I got to roll. I got business to tend to with Kyle here. Be live tomorrow at noon and then back tomorrow night late again. Apologies for not having a member stream last night. I planned on it and I took my nap. I went down to take a nap at like 5 o'clock. I figured I'd wake up at 6 and I woke up at 9:15, 9:30. I was so groggy. I named the stream Florida Ducks versus Anaheim Ducks. It is bad. It's bad all the way around. So we should be good to go for a member stream tomorrow. For the members, I do a 1/2 hour member stream before each Panther game. So, all right, everybody. Appreciate all the support. We'll be fine. We'll be fine. It's still early. I'll see you tomorrow.